that practice?
Yeah. I think we are live. There's a very good chance that we are, because we were going to different things. We started having James, our show, in a little bit late for that as well. So for all those people who just saw us just staring at each other for a moment, they're welcome.
So
Another edition of FTMIG Live on Midas Network. Here we are.
Never a dull moment, eh?
And we do have a guest with yourself. My good man, welcome to the show. We've had you on before. Vision Advisory, I believe, is the company name.
Yeah, for sure.
Welcome back. And
thanks for having me.
We thought we'd have you on and talk cannabis. This is a crazy day.
Oh, man.
It's legal.
I know.
Cannabis is legal in Canada.
Yeah,
Did you buy any?
I didn't. No, I didn't.
Come on.
I know. I bought some with James on the last show.
It's a day that's been circled in the calendar for so long. It's crazy that it's actually October 17th. Everything's getting going.
It's like when you're a kid and you circle Christmas.
It's crazy.
Can't believe it's
And
here.
Mike, you've been working in this space for years, through Canada Royalty, through what you're doing now at Vision Advisory, and just a lot of other aspects. Are people excited about today? I think, remember last time we were talking, like, you know what, today's another day. What really is exciting is what comes after.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting to see some of the footage that we've been seeing all day from different provinces at a retail level.
Oh, yeah.
We're seeing on Twitter a lot of people putting up their Ontario cannabis store purchases.
The St. John's one with Bruce Linton, that was huge.
That was actually really cool, yeah.
Yeah, 1201, I think he had the first
what
sale
time
in
did that
Canada.
guy have to get there to be the first in line?
And he got it signed too. I saw.
Yeah,
Which is cool,
They were waiting. Yeah, I saw another picture. I don't know if it was in BC or somewhere where they actually had stores already prepared, and there was a line. It was Apple. The new iPhone just came out, and they're lined up the out the door. It was interesting to see that many people right at 1201 just to get a piece of history, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely cool from a kind of national perspective. I've obviously watched a lot of recreational programs roll out across the U.S. and I feel like for a while I've been watching on TV. It's cool to see what's happening in Ontario, but still, as we were talking about last time, a lot of exciting things still to come. Definitely like sitting here in a Toronto studio.
Yeah. Well, it's just interesting. I mean, it's a lot of people are freaking out, like, oh, is everyone gonna be smoking weed everywhere now? I'm like, a little bit, yes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, even people, there's a lot of smokers that would just smoke cigarettes, smoke cannabis already. You know, if they see kids, they see people coming by, they make an effort to move away, whatever
You'd hope
it be.
they do that, right? Like,
well, it's the same thing as, like, you know, you're not going to want to go outside. Alcohol's legal. I know it's not legal to drink outside, but you're not going to want to be smashing a 40 just randomly on the streets and just watching everyone like it's you don't usually do that. So it'll be interesting to see, but it's just nice to know that, you know, a lot of people choose cannabis over alcohol. There's a really good argument to be that cannabis is a lot less harmful to you than alcohol is. Alcohol with your liver and your brain, as I pointed to the opposites. You know, it's just interesting, though. It's now illegal, and now we're going to be pushing through. But one of the biggest things that James had brought up in our last segment was marketing. You think that hurts LPs, the fact that they can't even tell people, hey, we're here to snuff at the black market? They can't really say anything. Yeah,
no, I'm really interested to see what things look like in a retail setting, because I logged onto the OCS today, and as someone who really understands the licensed producer landscape, I even had a hard time differentiating between like strains and products. They all look the same. And exactly, like seeing what I would want. So if you're a first-time buyer, first-time getting exposed to a lot of these companies, there's not really a lot of ways to differentiate from the product. So it's definitely going to be sort of the product speaking for themselves, as I think a lot of people have said.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, and marketing, branding, and then obviously in a retail setting, where you're actually directly communicating with the consumer, you have the opportunity to do a little bit more education and tell them sort of discrepancies between products and help them develop their brand preferences. Yeah. But yeah, it feels like we're at like the first inning of recreational, which I know people have been saying for a long time, but it's like, it's definitely not full-blown California style yet, but exciting nonetheless.
And it's funny that you said the whole thing about brand recognition and how important that is, one way or another, to get out there, because we were looking through the cannabis strains and all the products that were on the Ontario cannabis site, and it's funny that a lot of these ones, I probably knew the LPs, but I'm not well versed in what their recreational brands are, because everyone came out with their recreational brands recently. You know, they're all, I don't know many, but if I see Broken Coast, or I see, you know, WAPA, or certain strains, or certain, I'm like, okay, that resonates with me, I understand what that is, and if I was a consumer looking for something, like, okay, I'll buy that. Yeah. But what happens to the other LPs who have really, really great cannabis, but you're not either familiar with the LP, or you're not familiar with their brand name, but they're up there.
That's why you have groups like ours, that you can ask these questions, right?
You've got to. you've got to ask. Okay,
have those groups and everything like that, and that's like even with like what we do in Midas Letter, it's the exposure that these companies can have now, and we do the work for them, right? So it's kind of nice that we can kind of do that for them as well. But yeah, like you said, like you look at these things now, and how can you differentiate between the two unless you know about a certain one?
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard when you can't advertise. I mean, I've always thought, and I noticed it today, San Rafael, their cannabis strain. Yeah. I'm like, oh, San Rafael 71, the non-alcoholic beer that, is that MedRelief?
Yeah.
MedRelief had. And that's been over commercials, and they're promoting that non-THC beer. But because of that, I was able to recognize San Rafael on there. I'm like, oh, I know what that is.
Loopholes.
Like
that's what you got to find.
It's smart, and I think you do a lot of brand recognition in what you do at Vision Advisors. If you help them try to stand out or try to figure out how to do product placement. Is that something you focus on?
Yeah, it's interesting because like I definitely agree with your point that for like people who are tuning in today, there are definitely people who are interested from a investor perspective, but you do see a lot of overlap from consumption and investors. It's quite a unique industry like that, but there's obviously a huge group of people who might not have the means or just the interest in investing in the space for a variety of different reasons, but they might be already big consumers, they might be people who used to be consumers or come back to the product, or first-time consumers, and really educating those types of consumers is definitely going to be a challenge, but yeah, something that because there's a challenge, it makes it exciting to bring in some real expertise to try and attack that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you're seeing some of these companies, and the same one ran San Rafael, when they're on the commercial, and it's like, we'd love for you to try our new beer. And they just kept saying that over and over. I'm like, those clever, like, it's really bringing out the smartest out of our marketing teams and whatever, because they're looking, they have to be outside the box.
Oh, 100%.
And I do think, I mean, it can't be more than a year they allow this. They're going to loosen up. They have to.
Yeah.
And start treating it like alcohol opposed to treating it like tobacco.
Yeah, we've seen, like I live on King Street in the entertainment district in Toronto. We've seen a lot of brand activations, different stores with people promoting what they were doing. Obviously, we had a window there where licensed producers, at first they got the news, okay, you're going to be able to open private retail in Ontario. That became very exciting. And then all of a sudden the door actually got shut on that opportunity from a licensed producer perspective. Yeah. So I think for a lot of them, they were looking at it as a strategy to be able to start communicating to their consumers about their products and about the different differentiation that they're bringing. Now with that sort of opportunity lost, at least for Ontario, I think there's a variety of different tactics, whether it's like adjacent products like you're talking about with MedRelief, or we saw a bunch of strains come out from Ace Valley, an offshoot of Ace Hill, on the Ontario Cannabis store today, or different types of strategies like looking at Ontario retail and partnerships and strategies to get shelf space with those retailers to be able to communicate your brand message. Because if you could have 1 million, 2 million square feet of canopy online, but if the end consumer doesn't know about your product and they don't have a reason to click on you or buy you at the store, it doesn't matter how much you grow for or what all your economics are if you don't have that end consumer who's going to buy the product over and over again.
Yeah, and that's a huge emphasis a lot of people were saying with your cannabis stocks. Like, which ones are you going to invest in? You have to look into these companies. Like, just like you said, a lot of these people are saying, oh, we'll have 1 million square feet, we'll have 2 million, we have 3 million square feet. Yeah. Have you grown more than like 100 plants before? Yeah. Do you have people that you're going to be selling it after? Do you have guaranteed supply contracts with either a province or company or something along those lines?
Who knows what's going to happen either? Like, I mean, so many things can happen. Like, look at, what was it, Canopy, that whole thing was coming out, that they lost like crop. Like, everybody's going to lose stuff too. Yeah. But
I think Afria as well. Had a good amount of their crop.
Really?
And they had to just let it die, and they stated they didn't have enough trained workers to be able to do that much.
Luckily they have the square footage, but I mean, these smaller grow ops, like, what happens if they lose that and that's their whole supply? It's
yeah, I think the crop piece is like, it's interesting, but now as of today it becomes less about like what you can do. Like, that is almost, I think, yesterday's story already, where it's like, can you actually execute and operate and build out effectively and say what you're going to do? Now it's like, the sales are going to start to matter. There's no more, it's in the future, and it's when recreational comes online. I mean, there'll be excuses like this marketing and branding, products, retail getting set up, but now's when people need to start putting points on the board and executing, because no matter how much square footage you have, people don't, maybe you're growing it all, maybe you've had a crop failure, maybe not. But But if you can't start putting points on the board and showing that this is a product that sells to consumers, all that earlier stuff starts to matter.
Well, somebody was talking about how it was like all, it's all substantial. Like they don't know if it's going to be happening or not. And it's like, well, it's like, it's here, and like exactly like you said, it's all going to come out to revenue, so we still have to wait a little bit to see what's going to happen. So it's like, what, like you said, it's just, it has to let the companies talk for themselves as well. But
yeah, we're finally starting to get into this whole area where cannabis has always been highly speculative. It clearly and obviously still is, but now it's kind of like, okay, show me your balance sheet. Like
exactly.
All of the investors and the bankers said, I don't care if you get 50 times your money. I don't care all these. I want to go in a company I can read and understand. We're close to that. Because although we don't have edibles, and although Ontario doesn't have recreation sales until, or stores I should say, until April 1st, for the most part now though, we're going to find out, is your cannabis selling? Do you have the means of, someone's going to try it and all of a sudden, like there's going to be a cannabis Yelp. Yeah. And everyone's going to say, don't go back to this place, it was awful. Oh yeah. The trichomes weren't what I wanted.
The Google reviews are going to be all over the place.
But it brings a point though that you're going to have companies out there where people are like, you know what, that was actually really, really good. That was great cannabis, and they're going to start selling, and you're going to see that. Yeah. And although we might not get to profitability very quickly, we will be able to push forward with that.
Yeah, I think we'll probably see the sales, I think, are going to be disappointing across the board if you're comparing it to what analysts have sort of predicted. Yeah. And in large part out of control of the licensed producer's hands. It's something like Ontario Retail and the products that are eventually going to be part of their portfolio not being available yet. But I think it's less about total as compared to expectation, but more how you're competing with your peers. Like if you're out competing relative to your size, or you're actually able to fill into what your valuation said that you should be able to do, I think those groups will continue to be able to raise capital, grow effectively, move the share price, move the business forward. Yeah. It's companies that are going to fall back on those expectations, not fall in line with where they're supposed to be sitting, or worse, that I think are going to start to have trouble raising capital in the capital markets, bringing in good people, and ultimately surviving as companies.
No, absolutely. And speaking of this whole fact that we're going into legalization, not everything is set up right now, we do have someone on Skype right now. I'm going to jump over to Phillip Millar. Phillip Millar is the CEO of Wayland Group Corp CEO, and he is here from, I believe, based out of the United States, as I put this over my ear here. How are you doing today, my good sir?
Hey, how you doing? Actually, our company, our parent company is Golden Leaf Holding, which operates in Oregon and Vegas, but it's a Canadian company, and I run the Canadian department.
Hey, glad to hear. Golden Leaf Holding, actually, it's one that I have invested in for some time. I was watching all those different aspects. I was really excited to see their acquisition of Chalice Farms, and then their CEO taking the helms as well. It's been fascinating. But for those who don't know about your company, can you tell us a little bit more about you?
So at the same time Chalice Farms was bought, Medical Marijuana Group, or MMG, was purchased at the same time. And we have a license. We just were granted our sales license in Canada, and we have a smaller footprint, but we're focusing on end-use production and helping the Chalice Farms Golden brand move into an international place.
No, I'm glad to hear. I mean, like I said, they're really, it's a great company that I was looking into. For whatever reason, when you're looking at stock perspective, they've always been lagging what I personally think they're worth. And it'll be really interesting, as they are in a lot of legal states, to see them coming through and hopefully providing that shareholder value that people who've been investing in them in a long time understand that it's there, but sometimes it doesn't show as much as in the stock price.
I'll tell you why. I think I'm in Jerusalem right now. They have a medical cannabis conference here, and Canadians are being asked to speak on these ventures all the time now because of our experience. But I think you're right. Golden Leaf is undervalued because our revenue is rooted in American revenue, which we can't get the same stock treatment. So our philosophy is the long play is to expand our tentacles into as many states as possible. Get that brand, the Chalice brand, the Golden brand known until 280 and federal legalization comes in. That's the long play. The short play is to maximize the Canadian component, because having this license to produce in Canada allows me to take Chalice and Golden brands and export it to Europe. or take the intellectual property they have with distillate and edibles and be the first to launch that into Canada a year from now. So I think there's tremendous upside on a stock like ours, which is undervalued when the big players have invested all of their resources into becoming large-scale farmers, which I don't think is the future. I don't want to be a barley farmer. We want to be Anheuser-Busch in the end.
No, and absolutely. And then it is interesting, the part you just said there, where their product can come through Canada and be then exported all across Europe and these different areas. What your current facility is right now, you said you're based in Canada, but is there a certain location and how much you guys are currently producing?
Yeah, we're in St. Thomas, Ontario, and like some of the licensed producers, we didn't really know what the market was going to be like when we started. So we had a smaller facility. We're only at around 8,000 square feet. All of our product is sold. I get about 6 emails a day asking for products. So when you guys are looking at shortages, right now it looks like everybody is short of product. But we're selling wholesale at a very, at a price point that's higher than what the retail market is paying, the provinces are paying. So we're in a good spot. The question for us and for investors is how do we maximize that? And so we will be moving into the edible and distillate market using Golden Leaf's IP. So there will be an expansion in Canada so that a year from October, when the government allows those products that consumers want, we believe we'll have the best on the market. Simultaneously, we're looking at getting our brands and our products into Europe. Specifically, we know Germany is going to have a giant shortage, and so we're trying to get into Europe. So there's a lot of upside for us.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, from the very onset, I mean, I've always looked at Golden Leaf and just wondered, why is their share price where it was? And they had some struggles early on with Oregon, I believe it was, with that was legal tape. That was stuff you were preparing. I believe they actually had to move at one point, move a facility because of government regulations. So that hurts you for a time being, but then you look at what they have, and you look at what Chalice Farms, and you look and the branch that you have as well. There's a lot going for Golden Leaf Holdings, and I don't think enough people are really looking at this stock as something that they should be looking at as a short-term, medium-term, and long-term investment, and I think that's a mistake.
And I'd add to that, because the Oregon market was one of the most difficult. At one point it was exceptional, then the government changed everything, and so the fact that we survived in the Oregon market means that our CEO, our team has banked a lot of lessons learned. So we're able to move into other markets with a lot of experience, because as you know, this industry changes every 90 days, and it's very difficult to put out a 12 to 24 month plan and stick to it. So I think the leadership has got some exceptional experience. Canada is an amazing opportunity to launch that experience into Europe, because any country, all the companies in the U.S. Who aren't in Canada, they're going to be losing, I think, billions of dollars a month, because they're not able to get into France, the UK, Germany, all these other places. Whereas anything in Canada can start getting an international cannabis brand into Europe, while some really awesome players in the U.S. can't, because they can't move out of their state. So I think you're right. There's some upside from an investor perspective if people look a little deeper.
Yeah, and that's a really good point that a lot of investors are thinking about as well, is this whole aspect that American companies, as great as they can be, the revenues and all that, they still cannot export, not yet at least. Let's see what the midterms bring in the midterm elections, because I know that they're going to be pushing some sort of cannabis reform, but probably just take off Schedule 1. I'm not too sure. I'm not a politician in that sense, but right now, Canadians and Canadian LPs have a huge advantage in that aspect. So it'll be really interesting to see how those come together and see how Golden Leaf can utilize yourself and what you're doing right now to really push the brand. All three, actually numerous brands underneath Golden Leaf Holdings, but push that company and find a competitive advantage and make yourselves one of those companies that people will want to be invested in and want to start looking into even more.
Yeah, our direction is to take the Chalice, the Golden, the Select brands that are very well known and very much, they've won a lot of awards in the West Coast, introduce them into Canadian marketplace, and then do whatever we can to get them into a European marketplace. That gives us first mover advantage for branding. That's amazing, and I think branding is going to be very important. At the same time, Medical Marijuana Group, because we're an established Canadian LP, all the other jurisdictions that are opening up want our assistance to help get them going, so we can get that that intel early and get into the market early, help provide medical marijuana. And then when the eventual recreational comes 2 to 3 years later, which always does, Golden Leaf brands are just ready to pour in after us. So it's an exciting time for us.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I appreciate very much for your time. I know we were running a little bit late. We're doing a live show from from 10 o'clock on, so we ran a little bit late. So I hope you weren't waiting too much while you're out at dinner, wherever you are, or lunch, I should say, at this time. But appreciate your time. Anyone who's looking into more can look into. Do you have a website for yourself specifically for your company?
Yeah, www.medmg.ca.
Perfect. And GLH is the ticker on the OTC, but I believe it's CSC as well, actually, for that as well.
Yeah, glh.csc.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I appreciate very much your time. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the legalization day. It's come.
It's a good time. See you later, brother.
Take care. Awesome. And that, my friends, is how you do a Skype live, going from a live and then back into a live.
That was good. We weren't sitting here the whole time.
Not at all. But no, we invested in Golden Leaf Holdings numerous times. Yep. And it went from 20 cents up to 40, 40, back down to 20. It's been all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
But they have a lot going for them. They do. And I'm really happy to see they took over Chalice Farms. And that Chalice Farms, I'm trying to think of the name of the CEO, but he took over Golden Leaf Holdings. I think that's been a turning point. Is that it? William Simpson? Mm-hmm. That was a turning point to me.
100%.
I think the old management, he was the old ex-CEO of Cara Foods at one point. Unfortunately, mistakes happened. And the same mistakes happened while Oregon and these other government issues are happening as well. So it's just a whole thing that came together. You know, that's been up and it's been down, but I want to see them do well. But what else do we have here? I believe we've got, I don't know if I can get my NDI up if it's working. The market here, it's still pretty red.
Yeah.
But it's changing a bit. We'll see if it pops up.
It came back pretty nicely though, for some.
It did. For some it did, for some it did not.
Yeah.
And it was an absolute bloodbath to begin with.
Earlier today, yeah.
Bloodbath, but we were saying this. I think it was planning on being this way. If you know that people are expecting a sell on the news, even though we knew what the news was, if enough people think it, and you get a little bit of selling pressure, that triggers either people's minds or their stop losses.
Yeah.
And excuse me, that's what we saw yesterday and now today.
Yeah. With some of the stocks, I just was like, how can it go down even more?
Popping up here. So it cuts off right where it says the percentages for the TVs. But I think Free has turned green. CanTrust is green. QCA, Quinsam Capital, Organogram, Eanthus, MPX, those are two American companies. NBUD, recently trading, Indiva, and Choom. This isn't a full list of stocks. I switched over to Coach Stream a little while ago. I've been meaning to put even more on, but I've been so busy. A lot of red, a lot less than earlier. Earlier today it was a lot worse. But what do you guys think is going to happen in the next couple of weeks? Think it just goes horizontal? Does it spike after this? Does it absolutely tank?
Yeah, I was at the 8 Capital Cannabis Conference earlier this week with Castles Brock that hosted that, and really like some of the main themes that came out of that conference were obviously the U.S. opportunity right now. You know, Canada has arguably had its time from a capital markets perspective. There's a few really telling charts that actually a number of the U.S. issuers did with existing Canadian sales juxtaposed against market cap, and then existing Canadian sales with the same juxtaposition. And you can just see that there's a huge amount of market cap sitting right now in Canada with much less in the U.S., but the sales in the U.S. are actually exponentially bigger already in the United States. And you know, people are talking, because it was 2 days before legalization, so how closely is the U.S. looking at this? How excited are they? And they kind of look at it as another state opening up. You know, they look closely, but because the U.S. is so hyper-segmented and each state is so different, you know, people focusing on California, there's so many issues just to get through that state, and Nevada. And there was a lot of multi-state operators there, but they spoke to the challenges of different regulatory systems and, you know, some synergies. But they see Canada as just another state opening up.
Well, we have less population than all of California anyways.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting, but I think from an investor standpoint, I think more and more people are looking, now that Canada's sort of come to legalization, and I think some of those things I mentioned before, like Ontario retail, products, branding, marketing, there will still be more big milestones in Canada that I think will continue to push things in the right direction. I think the international conversation, like you were just talking about on your dial-in, is going to be more positive for Canada because of international relationships that can be cultivated from here. But in terms of pure domestic market and sizing, I think and like sales and EBITDA over the next 6 months, 3 quarters, it really seems like the major growth is going to be coming from the U.S. Not Canada's going to grow exponentially because we're growing from 0 recreational market to, $2, $3, $8 billion. But that growth is already factored into a lot of the valuations of the licensed producers. Potentially even more so, like overshot from where it might be. So I think the U.S. is kind of interesting right now. And like I mentioned before, I think Canadian companies are able to actually backfill where they said they were going to be in terms of market presence and market position in a recreational market.
No, I agree, and it'll be interesting to see how it plans out. In a moment here, Greg, you've been chosen. We're going to play hot potato with your seat because we have the CEO of MediPharm coming in as well. And Michael, I'm going to get you to stay because you know him quite well, and we're going to be able to talk to him and see what they've been doing in all those different aspects. So we're going to be doing that shortly. If you want to play this musical chairs that we're playing, it's legalization day. We'll do whatever we want. We just make it on the go.
Whatever we want in the studio?
Whatever we want. Well, I think there's some laws still that'll stop us from doing certain things. But it's just been really interesting. If I can get the NDI down as well. But no, it's fascinating though. I mean, there's so much going on, and there's so much change, and there's so much just unknown. Where it's like you said, yeah, you can export. And I make a huge deal on exporting. I think that's very important. But at the same time, if you don't export as much as a U.S. company can domestically sell in their own state, well, then they're still more valuable.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
Like you said, earnings before interest, taxes, and appreciation.
The whole export market to date has been, there's a lot of press releases and news about it, but I think in actual terms of dollars and cents, it hasn't been that significant. I think the real advantage for Canadian producers on the global front is, one, we have a leading regulatory system here that when other places around the world, whether it's in Europe or South Africa or South America, are introducing legislation, they're looking to Canada and Canadian companies as sort of like guides or shepherds through that process. And then, Canadian companies, maybe not on the import-export, but in terms of expertise building out facilities and product that is compliant at like a UGMP level and something that a federal government's going to want to see. You can get great product quality from somewhere like California or in Washington, but a lot of the facilities aren't built to that same level that you'd like to see from a federal system that looks like a lot of the global federal systems are introducing. So those factors, as well as obviously the significant balance sheets and cash that a lot of the Canadian companies have, make them prime sort of JV partners or equity partners on businesses that are starting to emerge and pop up. United Kingdom, London, just going to be opening up the medical. That was 4 months ago. We said that it wasn't going to happen. Typical to a lot of other places. We had 2 stories that were pretty emotional that played a lot in the news of people with epilepsy, young children, and now we actually have the whole medical market opening up there.
UK, specifically that one woman and her child. But we've got our next gentleman on here. We have Pat McCutcheon. Please forgive me if I did not say that name correct. I good to see you. How you doing, John? I heard that you guys knew each other. I'm like, I'm going to take this over the side so it doesn't block this too much.
This is small industry, of course. We've known each other for a long time. How's it going, buddy?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good.
So we
busy. It's crazy right now.
It's nonstop. Well, it's
a big day for everybody. Ever.
It's fantastic, and we've been talking about it all day. It's here. We're ready.
Finally.
What a statement for Canada, but for cannabis in general.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is a really exciting day. I think there's lots of bumps that the regulations that have gone through right now, and everyone's been so excited, and the buzz is here. It's finally here, and I think now it's time for Canada to show the rest of the world actually how to lead the path, just like you were mentioning, as I heard coming into the room. Really exciting. This is great.
And speaking of statements, actually, MediPharm, for those who don't know who just stepped in here, you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, were the very first license to have your oils license without being a specifically like a cultivator LP.
Exactly. So we were the first licensed producer to award a license without cultivation first.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we just look at two different kind of forms of working with our different clients and customers. One being where we buy wholesale, we process, and we sell wholesale back to other cultivation partners or into different provincial distribution paths. Or we actually take product where we don't actually take ownership of the product. We process it. We charge a per gram processing rate depending on what kind, type of purity we go to, or what type of packaging or product we form it into. And then we send it back to that cultivator for distribution to their medical patients or to different provincial distributions.
Very interesting. And that's going to be a big market. That's
it's going to be, we see looking at it as a huge market. And one of the things that I think we're a bunch of pharmaceutical guys that have literally been pulled from different areas of generic pharma, brand pharma, and biopharmaceutical manufacturing. And our key to success, I think, so far is putting those scientists together and PhDs to look at true GMP product development and manufacturing, whether or not it's going to be for medical patient or client or a recreational user. We feel that it has to be top quality, and that top quality is very important for safety and for the regulatory perspective. Yeah.
So I'm going to throw a curveball here and ask just a quick question based off that. Having all the scientists in here, we were speaking earlier about cannabis. A lot of people are saying that cannabis will take away from alcohol sales, and I think that to an extent that is true. I mean, it's kind of like if I said earlier, if you're going out for dinner or you're going out for food, you're hungry. So McDonald's and the Keg, they still compete with each other, but they're not directly in competition because they're very different. Yeah. But so cannabis and alcohol are similar but different. One of the biggest things is that if you're going to go out to have a beer, you're gonna have a beer. Like if you're having dinner and you have a beer, you're fine. If you go out to dinner and you toke a nice, strong indica, like there's a little bit of a difference. When it comes to the oils, though, do you think we're gonna get to a point where we have something where you can put it into a drink, or just something where, if you have one, you're comfortable. It's a little bit of a buzz, and you can expect it each time, like maybe 2% THC. Who knows? Do you think that's on its way?
I think it's on its way. I think the regulatory's got a ways to go before it actually supports this, and we find a way to work it safely. Yeah. I think there's obviously different dosages forms are they're available now, but you have to be very careful in terms of an individual user and how much you take, and then what that kind of safety line is. When you look at drinking a handful of beers and hanging out in a group of guys, it's one thing to watch sports, but if you, let's say for kind of lack of a better description or example, if you have a drink with a 10 milligram dose, which is typically would be considered a dose, if you take one of those, and maybe if I take one of those, I'm just at the point where I'm having a good time, and then maybe Mike takes two of those, and then he's all of a sudden way over the line, and you just have that small it's just two drinks would actually create a situation where you're over the line and it's not comfortable anymore. I think there's got to be a lot more kind of education in terms of dosing and how this is going to play out, because that's dangerous. Yeah. Typically, a group of guys at a Sunday watching football will have 5, 6, 7 beers maybe, and that's not really the case in terms of how we're looking at dosing. Yeah. If maybe there's an opportunity for drinks to have 2 to 3 milligrams in them. Yeah. But even still, if you look at the bioavailability and how quickly you'll actually react to however that powder or that liquid, whether or not it's fat soluble or water soluble, is added to that drink is really unique and individualized to the user. So there's a lot of learning to do there. We're going to be in the forefront of helping out with education in terms of how you can look at dosing. We're working with a lot of different physician groups to help out with kind of analyzing through research and development specifics with unique cannabinoids, and to see what the reaction is of those cannabinoids by themselves. So then you can actually look at what it would be like to do them individually and then full spectrum. So there's a very big element there that we have to do a lot more research and development on.
Yeah, and that's one of a lot of people always, this big thing before we actually legalized was, oh, when's the last time you heard someone overdose off cannabis? Yeah. And if you're smoking cannabis, I've seen people green out and whatever, but that happens at times, but
especially when they're drinking.
And you're overdoing it. Yeah. When it comes to oils, people really do need to be mindful that oils is a whole different game. Mm-hmm. I mean, alcohol you can drink responsibly, but if you chug a 2.6, like you're going to have issues. I think when it comes to oils, like you got to be careful. 100%. You have to be mindful with your dosing.
I think that's it's exciting today because we have full adult use legalization. So like your example before of an indica strain, I think going forward, you're going to have now people consuming products, but they're actually going to have somewhat more repeatable experiences than they had in the past. So you see online, there's pre-rolled joints now and oil tinctures, and even with dried bud, it's not like this is something that you have no idea what it is if it's the same thing as 6 times ago or 10 times. This is, people are going to start getting into brand preferences and knowing what they're buying every time. Yeah. Where it really gets to start interesting with a group like MediPharm is when you start having products that are in a delivery method that's a lot more both able to control that dose, but also from a consumer-facing perspective, appealing to different types of consumers. So yeah, something like a beverage where it exists. We actually spoke about this a bunch last time I was on. Yeah. It exists in the U.S. It's actually quite a small market, but Canada, with the scale that we have, the level of production scale that has been done for cultivation and now oils and pills and capsules. Once we get into beverages and we start doing them dosed correctly, with proper responding to pressure and temperature well, mixing well, tasting proper, the onset in the right amount of time, the offset, and actually like the education piece where someone knows, you and I know what a 10 milligram dose is or a 7 milligram dose is.
Exactly.
But we need to get to that point where an everyday consumer knows this is something, whether it's 3 or 5 or 7 or 9, and even given the variability between people, that this is something that works for them and is safe to try once or twice. And then eventually people will get into products that I think they'll be able to comfortably consume over and over again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love the point that you said that people will come back for certain products, because right now, before this, unless you had your medical license, something like that, you could go grab cannabis off whoever you're grabbing. They might be the best person that you ever met, but regardless, they're gray market and it's legal. But each time they might look at you, go, this is sour diesel. And
last time I had sour diesel, it did this to me. Well, what is this sour diesel? Where is it grown? How is it?
When you're going with these LPs, I don't know if viewers understand how stringent.
Yeah.
Like, of all the things, I've always, sometimes when the governments have certain regulations, I laugh and I call you screwed this up. You did. One thing the government did very well with Health Canada was the actual process of knowing what's going on. Yeah. The delays and all that, that's another thing, that's human error, we're learning. But the actual process of becoming an LP, you're not going to get that unless you really know what you're doing.
And then something that Pat could probably touch on way more than me, but also when you have like a strain, different grows, depending on exactly the growing condition, it's never really exactly the same. The genetics change over time, the people in there change over time. Even with an automated grow, there's different factors. When you're dealing with finished products like a beverage or a vape pen, it's really being broken down into its constituent parts, and the consistency level with the same product is going to get a lot more significant.
Yeah, good point, actually.
We feel very strongly. So it's one thing in terms of understanding what you can handle yourself. That's so internalizing and understanding what you can deal with in terms of what dose you can. It's another whole thing to have a product that's available on the shelf consistently that's going to have a very tight kind of variability or lack of variability. And so what we've seen now in the kind of evolution of the industry itself, and definitely through the kind of the gray market or black market, is that you can look at, let's say, a tincture bottle that's sour diesel, and there can be, let's say, 2 or 3 tincture bottles on the shelf, but within that, even within that batch, there can be, let's say, plus or minus 10 to 15% variability in the amount of active component or cannabinoids in that bottle.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we really try to pride ourselves on is when you go to GMP or like pharmaceutical production. That's GMP is the word typically I think for like the cannabis person coming new. GMP means pharmaceutical production. When you look at that, you create a system where you take the variability away. And so when you order a tincture bottle in early December, and then when you order one late February, you're gonna get the exact same thing. And so you can also use that to rely on the same dose. And that's how the evolution of the industry, I think, is coming to a better spot. And Health Canada has done a great job of creating the regulatory environment to support this. Yeah. And I think, again, it goes back to just the quality in manufacturing. That's a requirement, and the world's watching us to hit those kind of thresholds for quality. So we have to be the leaders there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
helps to have the significant pharma background.
Yeah, exactly. That's why Johnson & Johnson has given me kind of a good perspective and background on that piece.
Yeah. Well, because it's interesting, because even though we're talking about beverages and like buying an actual beverage, I think a lot more people are going to have drops that they can put in 2 drops into their coffee, 2 drops, whatever, and stir it up. So that there's not as much time for it to interact to change. Because you're not going to have a coffee and leave it there for 3 weeks and come back and drink it.
Right.
I hope you're not doing that. Coffee's not that expensive. Don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe on a Sunday morning, but other than that.
But to be able to put those drops and have consistency, that's what these medical patients. I was talking to my own doctor actually, and I said, "Are you ever going to prescribe cannabis?" And he's like, it's hard when each time I don't know really what I'm prescribing.
Right.
But I've spoken to some people now when they start going to distillates and where you're able to extract like specific cannabinoids, or just you have a much
isolates.
You have a much better process. He's like, with that, if I can get more evidence that it works, I'll begin prescribing it as an option if they ask for me. So because they want that.
So not to put you on the spot. But so obviously the last few days there's been so many headlines and news stories and press releases, but one that I think probably caught a few people's attention was, I believe it was on the 16th that Aurora got the first license to actually do CBD vape pens.
Right.
Obviously, just a huge consumer product in a lot of mature states, something that people talk a lot about. Obviously, we know over the next year we're going to have certain products introduced. How do you view that news in the context of what's going on?
I think it's great that Aurora's actually kind of broken ground there and gotten the regulatory support behind it. There's a kind of uniqueness in terms of how you actually have to fill your vape pen. That's just a kind of a middle stepping stone for the regulatory to catch up before we can get to a system where there's just a full vape pen where you can just connect a battery and move to. So there's a little bit of evolution that we need to get down that path. However, I think vape pens are one of the biggest future products that can actually support medical and recreational user, as well as the kind of the wellness user that looks to rely on a lower dose to not get super high.
So what they came out with is like just because I read the press release and didn't fully understand. So it's, you can put it into a 510 cart, but it's not prepackaged in that 510 cart.
Yes, yeah, they can't prepackage together.
Okay.
Is that like almost like a loophole they were able to find? Not loophole, but like that's just...
Aurora's been really smart in doing that and how they've kind of positioned themselves within the regulatory framework. I think we're really keeping a sharp eye on this to look at this moving forward, because I think vape pens are such an important piece of what's going to move. And it's also a piece that's being absolutely nailed down in the black market we need to get rid of. So I think that's a big piece for Health Canada to look at and for different regulator perspectives. So there's a little bit of movement there, but the vape pen gives an opportunity to dose reliance. And that's beautiful for physicians, because physicians don't feel comfortable giving their patient an option where they can control their own dosing regimen. That's the most dangerous situation. Not to mention when you get a child or something grabbing it. And it's obviously less danger to your lungs.
And I actually see more and more people, whether it's CBD and it just calms them, relaxes them, or whether it's THC. A lot of people recently have been using vape pens, and because it's in your pocket, you can pull it out. You could have one or two, whatever it be, but you don't reek of smoke afterwards. You didn't have to light a huge joint or anything. It's just there, done.
Yeah.
You don't have to light a pipe and then put it out and wash it so no one smells it. Put it back in your pocket.
Exactly.
So I actually am very surprised. I always laugh. Of all the methods, we went, you know what? Cannabis is bad. We're not doing edibles that you can eat. We're not doing vaporizers that don't have smoke.
Not yet.
We're going to go and we're going to do flower that you're going to, that's a carcinogen that you're going to smoke, because that's the safest way to start. I laugh at it sometimes, but
and if you look
at start somewhere.
If you look at the different global jurisdictions that have taken the steps forward, like that's one thing that's Colombia has really surprised me, where they've actually allowed only a liquid-based medical environment.
Is that what?
And that's cutting edge compared to a flower-based medical environment. Which, again, there's a lot of things that we can kind of enhance upon. I think we're going very much in the right direction, but that's one of the biggest things. I think vaping is much safer and dose reliant, as well as you don't have that kind of stigma of smoking a joint if you don't want that. Right? So
and UK, specific. I think UK just came out. I think that's their stipulation too. It has to be liquid. They'll do it, but they won't do it so that you can smoke it.
Right.
Well, just because Canada was such a first mover in this, we don't get the benefit of the rear view mirror as these new countries coming on. So it's our program started really in the courts with reversals of decisions where flower was the product being used, and that was sort of, at that time, oil-based products were starting to spurt up in the United States, but they really didn't have the popularity that they do today. So because the government committed to get it done by today or this general time frame quite a few years ago, they're saying let's get this introduced, and then obviously things like vape pens, edibles, drinks, patches, cream, sublinguals, they seem a lot less harmful on their face. At the same time, something like edibles, you need to get right, because there's a lot you can do wrong with edibles.
Ask Colorado and Washington how that happened.
So I think they have the right approach. It's just like you were just saying, and you're also saying from the black market, those are products that still exist. From a health and wellness perspective, those products should probably exist before the whole country is starting to develop, start smoking again. So I think there's definitely a movement on that, which is why the Aurora release was interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how quickly some of them come on.
Yeah. And just the perception in the general public. I literally was in a cab last night, and a kind of a middle-aged guy who seemed like he would kind of be educated on the industry itself. Yeah. Middle-aged guy. I don't know. He had a lot more hair than I did, so I'm not sure how middle-aged like I am. But he felt that the dispensaries were a legal faction and an opportunity to actually get legal product. And so there's a lot of education that needs to come with this, and that's where the next major steps need to come.
It's going to take time
and focus. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a huge change, but it's interesting, and companies like yourselves are very, very interesting, because I've always said, look for companies that are going into oils. You guys are almost, or you are
We're exclusive,
strictly oils.
Yeah, MediPharm Labs never invest in cultivation directly. We work with a number of different cultivators, and the way we look at it is de-risking the business model. Yeah. There's a number of companies that have challenges with indoor cultivation, right? And Canada is a really difficult place to grow indoors with a very limited number of pesticides. So we try to look at just from the business perspective to work with a number of different groups that will hopefully, a handful of them will pop off for large volume production, and that de-risks the business model. So we only exclusively focus on extraction.
Yeah, it's an exciting story with you guys. Like I have a lot of friends who have been early supporters of you guys. Obviously, been public now for a few weeks.
For 3 days. I think we're 9 days.
Yeah. It's an exciting story. No, it feels like it's been a few weeks.
With the weekend, it feels like it was a huge milestone for us to get over. Yeah. But yes, I keep going where you're going on this line.
Yeah, no, I'm just sort of like, it's a whole sort of new world, because now it's not just the the stocks trading and all that, but there's a lot more attention. New people are going to be coming into where you guys are competing. People who are playing on the cultivation space are looking to sort of expand, and you guys really look like forward thinkers. So how's that whole process been and everything?
How the process has been challenging. I think one of the things with Health Canada was that originally it just didn't fit into the kind of the protocol of the application process. And so we went through certain times over like about 2.5-year process where Health Canada was questioning how is your business model sustainable, and with being extraction only and being independent like that, can you prove to us to show that you actually have a sustainable business model? And so some of the friends that we're actually discussing here that were kind of early supporters of the company that were from other LPs, we were actually able to get LOIs suggesting that they would send product to us to get us out of the gates. We submitted a package of 5 LOIs to Health Canada to say this is a sustainable business model. It's a unique one, yes, but this is needed in the industry because cultivation is so difficult, and typically extraction is looked at as an afterthought. That it's truly 2 different industries in itself. And so we really tried to position, looking at California and Colorado, where there was a number of examples where you have processing or tolling houses, as well as extraction only kind of business strategies, and they were synergistic with large cultivation. So we think that it's difficult to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. That cliche statement, I think, is very applicable to this industry. And so we try to make our cultivation partners better by not only working with them from the minute they harvest the plant through drying and curing to how it gets to our facility, but we give them the advantage to use that more space to accelerate their business model, to hit those kind of volumes they're looking for cultivation, and also to accelerate their opportunity to get oil SKUs on the shelf. So it was a really needed piece, and we feel like we're connectors in the industry.
Well, exciting. Well, we're going to jump to a clip, because we were actually talking to different Canadians. We went downstairs right down here and just started asking people. But you're on the stock exchange. Is it CSC?
Yeah, we're at the TSXV, and we're listed under the ticker symbol LABS, LABS.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you coming on. We still have Ben Ward coming on later on for our viewers as well. That'll be coming up very shortly. Awesome. But let's skip to the Take It to the Streets right now. And we're here today with Eden. Eden, you're going to help us with a segment we're calling Take It to the Streets, where we are at the Eden Center right now in downtown Toronto, and we are going to just be interviewing random people, asking them what's going on with legalization. What do you think they're going to be saying?
I don't know. I think it's going to be kind of a mixed bag of opinions, but I'm really excited to see the types of people we get out, the type of people who are comfortable, and see where everyone's sitting right now with legalization just around the corner.
Hey, I'm glad to hear. Let's see what we have in store for the next little while and see what we can get on camera.
Okay, awesome.
Perfect.
All right, so my name's Eden. I'm with Follow the Money Investor Group, and what we're talking about today is the fact that on Wednesday, October 17th, Canada's legalizing cannabis nationwide. So what do you think of that right off the top?
It's about time. I mean, it's silly to criminalize cannabis and throw people in jail for holding a little token or whatever, a toke or whatever, and using up our legal and judicial resources.
Well,
we tried to beat it, and we didn't win. I don't see anything worse than drinking alcohol. I mean, it can lead on to other things, but so can alcohol. So with proper use, I don't see any problem with it, really.
I think it's a good decision to legalize cannabis. Anyway, a lot of people are already smoking cannabis because I think medicinal marijuana was already legalized. So in that name, people were using it for recreational purposes. So I think it's a good decision that we legalized it.
I think it's great. I have a family member that actually had a brain tumor, and she's been smoking marijuana now for about a year, and the tumor has shrunk, and they're saying it's because of the marijuana. It is shrinking it, so I think it's great.
No? Do you believe that it's going to help with the black market, or do you think the black market's going to still be kind of in play once legalization is implemented in Canada?
I think that the black market will still be there for the younger generation, under 18.
Very true.
But it will cut down, and I don't see any real problem with it, to be honest with you.
I think it'll still happen. I mean, once people figure out what the costs are for buying it legally, you can always undercut it and sell it illegally, but I think it will definitely help people who maybe had no other option than to buy it illegally, who maybe think, well, I don't want to buy it illegally now because I have an option to.
Do you consider investing in cannabis at all, investing in any of the major companies?
I haven't thought about that yet. I think it's too early to say. I'd like to see what happens in maybe a year or two.
Yeah. So do you know any of the big companies that are going to be dispensaries, distributors?
No, I got no idea. I've only been here for a month, so...
Oh, cool. Where are you from?
Australia.
Okay, so you have it legalized medicinally over there, right?
Nah. I don't,
sort of?
Kind of, yeah. I don't really know.
Is in terms of buying once it's legalized in Canada, would you prefer to buy it from a dealer, or would you buy it from a licensed distributor?
I personally would go to the licensed distributor. I think it's safer. You know what you're smoking. You know it's a clean product, rather than a dealer on the street. You don't know who they got it from and who that person got it from before them and what they're cutting it with or what they're putting on it to make. I just personally, I'm more industry bound. I want to go in, talk to people that are growing it and that know I know I'm healthy.
I think if once it's legalized, I will go to a dispensary and purchase it.
So you like the fact that it's being kept in the hands of the small producers, right?
Yes, yeah. And maybe online if it's available. Yeah.
All right, cool. And last question, do you think Canada's ready for this? Do you think, you mentioned, it's been in talks for a few years, but the fact that certain people don't know about it, do you think that Canada's ready for this nationwide?
Yeah, I do, because at one time prohibition was knocked down, and we've come a long way since prohibition and rum running and stuff like that. So let's just bring it out into the open.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. Interesting. Yeah, I think so.
I think it's the right direction. I think it'll probably lead other countries to look at it. Maybe not Donald Trump.
Hard to say. I'm not, because I haven't really looked into it that much, but I know it's been in the works for a couple years. Yeah. So I would hope they have their stuff together.
I hope they know what they're doing at this point.
Yeah, I would hope so.
I mean, we'll find out. We'll find out, like, very soon, yeah.
Okay, so, on a whole, what do you guys think about, trying to get people to talk and open up about legalization of cannabis in Canada?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, it's one thing that people are really scared of the camera. They don't always want to come on, but other people, they look at you and they actually have no opinion, one way or the other. It was interesting to find that you got your people who really liked it, you had a couple people who said no, and then the other people said, I have no opinion. But yeah, this is one of the biggest things that Canada's done in a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, we were able to get a few people though, it was nice.
Yeah, it was a fun morning. It was like, we started off really slow and people were just kind of like getting to work and rushing, but you can definitely see that some people just still have that stigma. Yeah. Like, oh, cannabis, I mean, I flat out asked some people and they're like, oh no, I don't want to know. And I'm just like, well, wait, even if you don't like it, let's get your opinion on camera, and maybe it could have been the camera, but, so yeah, we definitely still have some work to do, as a culture, people accepting cannabis more.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, and it's also just because it's like you said, like a lot of people, I think a lot of it's stage fright. People don't want to come on camera. You said you had sons, and you were coming over this, it's on camera, like no, and they
ran the other direction, yeah.
They ran away, so it's interesting. Like I think as this keeps opening up though, I want us to go back out, and when we actually have retail stores in April 1st, to be able to ask people, you know, have you been going to your dealer, or have you been going to an LP? And it'll be really interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah, definitely. And something I noticed today that a lot of people remarked on was the people who knew of cannabis and were knowledgeable about, you know, Wednesday and what's going to be happening. If I said, oh, what do you think about people not knowing anything about this? They're like, oh, have you been living under a rock? Yeah. So what do you guys think about the fact that there's still those people out there who have had blinders on this whole time, and this is a totally new concept for them?
I think a lot of it stems by the fact that, you know, everybody saw the newspapers. Everyone's seeing it but they don't realize that this, like, it's now it's happening, and I think that's the biggest thing. Like, what do you mean? So I think it's shocking people, because it's still this whole, especially if if you've been a baby boomer, if you've been with illegal, as cannabis being illegal for so many different years, and all of a sudden now it's legal. You're like, well, what am I supposed to do with it? It's very, very different for a lot of people.
You know what? I don't think there's anyone from our generation that really doesn't, you know, is like, no, cannabis. I mean, I'm not, you know, maybe I'm not a big fan of recreational cannabis. I mean, I don't necessarily want to see people just everywhere just blazing up. You know what I mean? But you know, there are some negatives about it. But it's more about the older generation, which we got some people on camera today, and I don't even know what they said. I'll have to watch this after. Oh, it's about time. Yeah, so see, that is really cool. But I'll say this, one thing that I did notice today is that all of the coolest people that we met today, they all liked cannabis. You know what I mean? Like, just, you know, they just had good energy. They seemed like good people. There's something to be said about that. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person if you don't like cannabis, but just, you know, when any time we approach like I noticed when we were approaching people about an interview in general, all the people that came on were very open, and you know what I mean? It's just like, and calm and relaxed and not in a rush, and that's what I noticed.
Yeah, I think it's like you said though, it's a certain personality that you have. And, you know, a lot of people, you know, if you're an alcoholic, sometimes you have really nice alcoholics, sometimes you have very, very aggressive alcoholics. I've never met an aggressive stoner or aggressive person who smokes cannabis all the time, ever. You might find some lazy ones.
Well, like you haven't met someone that gets high and beats their wife?
That's bold.
But people get drunk and do it all the time, right? It's a fact.
It is, and it's unfortunate, because at least when you're smoking cannabis, you don't have that.
Excuse me, ma'am. We're talking about cannabis today.
Oh, God.
Yeah, what do you think about cannabis?
Well, I'm a cancer survivor and a college instructor, and I always go with the scientific research.
Right.
I'm not looking forward to smelling that everywhere I go.
Yeah.
24-year-old son that I'm hoping doesn't get into it.
So you really don't want to see people like smoking cannabis everywhere?
No, I don't. I don't want to smell it or see it.
Okay, no, I'm kind of with you on that one. What about people that vape it, where like you don't have the cloud of smoke everywhere and you can't really smell it?
Well, again, I fear for their brains and their cognitive functioning and their social and emotional well-being.
Okay, so it's safe to say you're not a big fan of cannabis?
Not a fan at all. I'm 55 years old. Not a fan.
Okay, that's cool. Absolutely.
That is brutally honest.
Yeah, no, that's great. There is no right or wrong answer here.
I don't think so.
And so you do know that cannabis is going to be legal in 2 days?
Yes, been talking about it with my husband. We just came from the States, and we are smelling it everywhere.
Oh, really?
Everywhere. We came out of an arena in Buffalo, and it was like everybody was smoking. I thought, what is going on down here?
Yeah, those cannabis smokers.
Okay. So,
well, no, you know what? Thank you very much for your...
Trudeau, I'm just so sorry that you've gone ahead and done this, but we'll see what happens.
So say no to Justin for re-elect.
Say no. Say no to Justin for re-elect.
Yeah.
You heard it from a British Columbia girl.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it. Now it makes sense. Do you want to talk about oil?
Yes, my husband has a business in Alberta. We want to talk about oil. Oh my gosh.
So we're having well, no, hold on. Canada has a big problem right now getting our oil out of the country.
I'm in shock. I'm in shock.
Did you see the price of oil last week? I think we're around $20 a barrel.
We follow it.
It's brutal.
It is more than brutal. It's
so basically
outrageous.
So basically, Justin and the Liberals say no to oil, but say yes to cannabis.
Flip that.
No, but
It reminds me of my son.
No, look.
You're beautiful. I love your jeans. Thank you very much.
See you later.
I had a pair in the 70s. I know.
Bye.
That's my favorite decade.
See you later.
When is that going to be on?
It's be on Facebook.
Oh, love it.
And later. Well, you know, see you later. You know what's funny is that, I mean, this is really weird, but just by looking at her, I would have sworn she would have smoked cannabis, man. Yeah. And she doesn't like it. Yeah. Anyways, that worked.
Dangerous.
That worked out. We got a meeting to go to, man. We got to cut this out. Anyway, here.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
I guess we're going to wrap it up today, but I thought it was kind of an educational day for me too, to just kind of see, you know, right down to the wire. It's happening in 2 days where everyone's sitting on the cannabis side of the fence. So I thought it was really, really informational, if that's a word, really full of information for me today. There we go. Fixed it. I had a lot of fun. Just, you know, you never know who you're going to meet. Like, for example, that lady, you know, I know stereotypes obviously aren't something you want to make a habit of, but by looking at someone, you know, because weed is often synonymous with that kind of stoner-looking, lazy mentality, but it was great to see some people that you wouldn't guess, or, you know, the types of people that were totally 100% pro-cannabis. I found it really interesting to kind of see the different ends of the spectrum of where cannabis sits in everybody's minds right now. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Awesome.
All right. Well, this concludes this Take It to the Streets.
Yep.
Tune in next time for wherever we are and whatever we're doing.
And we are back.
That was a fun
We were in the streets, now we're not in the streets. It was interesting.
That was pretty funny. That was awesome. Yeah. I think I owe men an apology because I mentioned that, you know, men might come home and get drunk and beat their wives, but, you know, women can do the same thing, get drunk and get abusive. So sorry I left out women.
Yeah, it's both sides, right? Alcohol can definitely do that to you. Cannabis will just make you hungry, passionate, and other aspects. Well, we've had a bunch of different things going on today. I let that last interview with MediPharm and with Michael go a little bit long because I was loving that conversation. We're going to jump into Ben Ward coming up because we had a chance of having Ben into the studio. But before that, because it's legalization, make sure none of my stuff comes off here, they gave us a few things here.
Who did?
Graham.
Come on.
I went to go see Graham. Make sure
Don't spill the water.
I know. Don't spill the water. So, we have books, hats, shirts, everything you can think of when it comes to Wayland, because we're getting ready.
Oh, that's snappy?
We're getting ready. Snapbacks. Snapbacks
Can't
as
see
well.
the logo.
We got snapbacks. We got Kiwi for anybody who's looking into their product brand.
These are comfortable.
Oh, I know. We've got some pens here as well, but my favorite, though, before we jump to Ben, thank you, Wayland Group, I appreciate that very, very much, is the new Wayland mug. I don't know if we have
the new Wayland mug
of this. My profile picture is me doing this with the Follow the Money, so it's now going to change to this, but we're going to jump to Ben Ward with all this different gear here and watch his interview now.
Later.
And we're here with Ben Ward, CEO of Wayland Group. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. It's been a busy last 4 years, 3 years, but especially recently. You guys have a lot going on in different areas, but I wanted to touch on one thing really quickly, and that was there was a message that you had go out, and it was speaking about I think it was the days, the weeks, the months, the years, or something along those lines. It really, really resonated in a lot of investors when they were looking at that and seeing that looked like it was just, you know, from your heart. It was just penning thoughts around to paper. What was going through your mind when you had that? But also, over the next couple of years, what do you have in store for Wayland for investors who are curious?
Yeah, I think the real genesis behind that was addressing staff and then the general public as investors as well. Just showing that this is a long-term development and process. Everything in cannabis, it sometimes seems that a month is a year, but taking back, gaining full perspective, knowing that making rash decisions now can hurt you later, being methodical, planning for the future, and building real value that will come back to investors over the next 2 and 3 years to make a sustainable business. Yeah. That's where our focus is. So we may not be promotional as other groups, but we're building a solid business, and we've evidenced that to date with the operations now fully functioning in Germany, Switzerland, and then our new facility coming online in Canada as well.
Yeah, and actually just recently you had a news release just come out about 9,000 kilograms to a certain group. I can't think of the group's name off the top of my head, but that's a pretty significant amount. Can you go into a little bit of detail of what that entails?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Canamedical Pharma. They're the largest independent importer of cannabis in Germany, and they're distributing to over 2,200 pharmacies. So it's a contract and agreement for a minimum of 9,000 kilograms of our EU GMP certified cannabis flowers over the next 3 years. And that agreement starts in December. It's a high margin product for us, and we'll be delivering that to them. And they've conducted all of their quality assurance audits, they've inspected, and we'll move to market. So that's a large line of business for us, helps in the sustainability and further penetrates the German market.
No, that's good. And from my understanding, it would be exported, and you have at that time, you're working on the import license in that aspect. That's regulations, whatever it is. But this would be an export to your own import. You're taking it in and then providing it. Is that how it would work? Or?
This one is an export to a different company. Okay. They have their own import license, and then at a later date, we'll also be importing through our own GMP certified facility.
Yeah, no, and I spoke to a lot of people actually about Germany and those different areas where you get really high margins from each gram of cannabis, much more, especially when you're medical, much more than what we're seeing in Canada. I know we have lots of operations happening in Canada, and you're going to have a nice footprint here, but out in Europe in those different areas, is that a really big focus? It seems like it, obviously, for Wayland.
Yeah, for us, it's our main focus. We have the recreational market here, but what I think separates our positioning there is in Canada, there's over 100 licensed producers. You produce to GPP standards, which are great. They're far beyond what you see in the United States to date. But really with EU GMP certification, you're separating the wheat from the chaff. It takes a lot of dedication and effort and compliance to be able to produce EU GMP certified cannabis flowers. That means treating the plant as medicine right from the time that you clone from the mother plant, right through the time that it's packaged. So we're competing against everyone in Canada, licensed producers who don't have to meet those standards. In Europe, there's only 6 of us in the world who are able to meet that standard.
Yeah, and something recently came up actually. They were showing that a little while ago, there were, I think it was in Germany, where there was a list of certain companies who will be able to operate there. They scrapped that list. They said we need to do it from scratch. And I remember seeing something recently coming out saying, like, okay, we're getting ready to start preparing for this. Have they had any talks with you about how that might look, or just the actual framework of how they're going to do that in the next little while?
Yeah, there's been a full new tender published, and we're participating in that. And on November 5th of this year, we'll be submitting. That's the deadline. We have our partners, the same ones that were in place for the last submission, where we were successful in being included as one of 10 qualified applicants out of 118 that were asked to submit a bid. We'll be there again in the same partnership with the same groups again. And we hope to be successful. No guarantees, but we think we're positioned for success.
And it's nice to hear, because again, that's just another step as well. Now, you brought 2 things onto the desk today, and we're going to be talking about these because these are 2 different aspects, one of which is I don't know if everyone can see it, is your CBD capsules with your Vezisorb. And this is currently selling right now.
Yeah, these are in the market in pharmacies in Germany, and we sell direct online as well. They vend for around 59 euros per package. So blister packed CBD capsules, soft gels with our Vezisorb technology. There's 25 milligrams of CBD per capsule. Competitors are selling for around 100 euros, 10 milligrams per capsule without Vezisorb or differentiated delivery system. So we've moved to market with this product. It's successfully moving, and after Germany, we'll be moving to other markets as well.
Yeah, and that's quite literally more than double the CBD levels in there, or 10 milligrams compared to 25. And then what you said, 60, or sorry, you're almost half the price.
Yeah, we're almost half the price, and we did that because we think that some products are overpriced at present. This is a sustainable price level we can maintain, and as it's right now listed as a food supplement, it meets different disposable income targets as well.
Yeah, and the current hemp being used for this product, is this from Mare plant itself, or is it from a conglomeration of several different things?
Yeah, right now our API, or active source, the CBD that's coming from it, is sourced from an outside party. But we have our operation in Germany now that we've completed our harvest, and then we'll be extracting that product and using our own distillate in our CBD capsules. So we can expect around February or March that we'll be using our own.
Very nice. And that process alone, some of the images and videos started getting their way on Instagram and Twitter a few weeks ago, if not more. But it was really interesting because I was speaking to you and you were saying, like, you went out there and you started planting this hemp, and then you had a tanker like, we got to figure this out, because you guys want to do it perpetually.
Yeah, we initially made the decision that we grow 165 hectares, and that sounded like a reasonable crop. And then we realized, well, everyone is physically harvesting this by hand. Well, how many people are we going to need to harvest that much hemp by hand, even if we use migrant labor? Yeah. So we started and did a test patch with 4 hectares, and we got busy in the meantime turning what was a corn combine into a different type of harvesting machine where we designed and put in our own IP. And now we only take off essentially the top 5 feet, 6 feet of the plant and leave the rest of the 11 feet of the stalk, which has use for industrial fiber but not for our purposes. Yeah. That's then shredded onto the field, and we collect that and we press that into horse pellets. It's horse feed that we're able to get from the stalk of the plants, and we'll be distributing that. And then, but the top element of the plant, we're able to sustain and keep more of the plant without damaging it. What you typically would do in felling the whole plant, knocking it over in the field, then collecting it. We're able to gently harvest the plant, and I think in the yields that we'll be seeing and that we've seen to date, that we'll be able to have a higher percentage of CBD recovered from those plants because of that technology. Then the next problem presents itself. Well, now you have to dry essentially 120,000 kilograms of hemp flowers, and you have to do it in 6 weeks. So we built an inline drying system, got all of the different pieces put together. Our German engineering team is great, and one of our advisory board's members, Hans Daendel, was a former scientist at the NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab. So he put his mind to work, helped sketch out different diagrams, and we got to an inline drying solution where we're able to effectively dry all the product and then sort it afterward, and then bag it and tag it.
Yeah, exactly. And in talking or speaking on bagging and tagging and speaking on manual labor, we were a lot of talks right now on, because October 17th, we're here. Legalization is here in Canada, and one of the biggest, like, there's so many different articles out right now. You know, are the LPs going to be able to provide? What's going to be happening? How on earth are these government agencies going to be able to actually get huge shipments from these LPs, but then sort it, package it, sell it, all that? You brought another thing over here because you're specifically one of the bottlenecks that are happening right now is packaging. How so?
Yeah, so we have the inventory ready to deliver on product, and then the orders that came in, normally in medical we deliver 5, 10, 15, 30 gram formats of cannabis, and that's packaged and labeled and sorted. So here we have our recreational label approved box. You open that, and then you get your 1 gram container. Imagine getting an order for 100 kilos. That means you need 100 times 100 kilos. Thousands and thousands of containers. That's not the issue, packaging that in a child-proof container. The main issue is every province has a different excise stamp. These excise stamps have to be applied. They don't have an adhesive backing on them, so we're literally back to kindergarten glue stick, attaching this excise stamp, holding it, waiting for it to dry, and then putting it in the box. That's the bottleneck right now. We've ordered an automated solution. We're working with Rockwell on that. But if there's anything that can be blamed for us not having product to the market soon enough, we have 3 shifts online, 8 hours, 3 8-hour shifts of people working around the clock. All they're doing is applying that simple stamp to this bottle. Really? And that's where the bottleneck is.
It's fascinating. I mean, it's fascinating, but I also understand it. I mean, I've watched politics in Canada and the United States for some years, and it's just funny where there are so many times there's an easy solution to something, and for whatever reason, governments just don't seem to always take it. Sometimes they nail it and they do a fantastic job, but other times it's amazing how, like, that right there is costing time, money. It's costing the ability of getting product out there. Do you think this might, make it a little bit worse come October 17th, especially in the provinces that have their stores open right away? Do you think this is going to be a big issue?
Yeah, I think it'll be an issue, but it'll smooth out over about 2 or 3 months once we have an automated solution in place, and once we're able to figure out exactly what the adhesive that works the best is, and put that together. But it's an issue, and again, it just comes to lead times. October 17th, many people in the market were upset because they viewed that as being too long. I think that regulations and different things were introduced too late in the game for the provinces, and having to move ahead and be ready for October 17th. Just strategic supply chain management issues. that would normally be commonplace. If you have 6 months to prepare, that's no problem. When you're getting an order or PO 5 weeks in advance of the date that legalization comes, and then the excise stamps are delayed, and when they come, you have to attach them by hand.
Yeah.
And I offered to have my children go. I have 5 of them, but they're not over 18, so they can't work. My 4-year-old has great glue stick skills, but
it's
not
actually,
allowed.
when you pulled this out earlier, this is the first time I've actually seen this. I was not aware of this personally, so it'd be interesting. But this is all coming from Langton right now, the product that's going out there. How's the Langton facility going? We're seeing those Wayland minutes coming out each week, showing these different areas of its growth. Where are we at currently with it? Because I saw some flower in another video or an interview we were doing earlier, showing a picture, I think it was actually on Twitter. How's that going right now?
It's going incredibly well. So we have the 1 room up and going. It's ready for harvest in 3 weeks. And then we have 6 other rooms that are ready for approval from Health Canada. They've been inspected. We're just waiting on Health Canada for that. Then we'll be able to start planting in those rooms. And we're still on time for completion in December of this year for all of the different elements. What we did is we staggered into the facility. So we start with mom, clone, veg, and we're currently flowering one of the veg rooms, and then we'll be able to move into the flowering rooms incrementally. The whole facility will have around 2 million plants in it, so you have to start propagating and creating plants from there. So we took that approach intentionally.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I've been there a couple of times now. I keep telling Graham and yourself, I want to get there when it's finished. I want to be able to see the whole thing because it really, you have to go there to appreciate it. When it comes to I had asked earlier before we went into a couple other things. What's the plan for Wayland in this next, 6 months, year, 2 years? We spoke about the fact that abroad is a huge element because more and more places are coming on as medical cannabis. I can only imagine that you're searching other areas and wanting to grow that. But what's in store for the next while for investors?
Yeah, I think every market that you've seen turn, we've been there, and we have plans to penetrate select numbers of those markets, and I think that you'll see things hitting the tape where we're moving into different geographies intentionally, taking our Canadian model and template, transferring that where it makes sense and applies in different markets, and working with governments there to develop a sustainable, reliable domestic supply of cannabis products, but having the size and strength and scope and quality to be able to export to those markets in the meantime. So there's different things on the horizon. It seems like we have a new announcement almost every day. Lithuania went forward with medicinal cannabis. The UK is moving ahead. So we're seeing this grassroots movement finally playing out and seeing legalization to come across the board. So new geographies are coming.
Yeah, and UK is a very interesting one because that one, I didn't even know that was coming personally. I mean, I'm not that in depth with the other countries and what are going on, but that's got to be significant because you've seen Germany is a massive area to come on board. Then you're seeing this, a little bit smaller with like Malta and things like that making their way, but UK has got quite a significant population. Do you find that a significant development for where you want to go, obviously?
It's a huge development. I mean, the UK coming online, and especially with Home Office and National Health Service paying for prescriptions, that's a huge payer market. And then eventually I think we'll see recreational come 5 to 10 years later. But for the meantime, we think there's a lot of people who are demanding phytopharma solutions, which cannabis is one, to be complementary medicines. And I think the UK is a huge market. And I think that Italy has now moved ahead and has been there for quite some time, but looking to modernize their policy. And with a new government in place, I think we'll see that happen as well for domestic production beyond what the military currently is doing there. And then I think we'll, interestingly enough, see France move ahead. There's a lot of bubbles, a lot of things happening, and I think the French market is ready to move ahead with cannabis legalization at some point in time, whether it's now or 2 years from now. I think we're very close.
Now, do you think a lot of that, go off script here for a second, off Wayland specifically, I mean, do you think that a lot of this has to do with Canada finally, like, legalization's here, so now these other countries are like, if Canada's doing it, G7 country, G20 country, they see everything that's put in place. We've seen the United States, Colorado, Washington, we've learned from the issues that happened, or at least a lot of them. Do you think they're now looking at this and we're about to see a rapid change in the world? We're already seeing it slowly, if you want to call it slowly, but do you think that they're looking over at Canada like, if Canada's going to do something, if they allow this product, if they allow this process, I'll allow that process too? Do we have a say like that?
Yeah, I think that Canada's been the guinea pig for the world looking at us, and the fact that we introduced medical cannabis on a commercial level on April 1st, 2014, and it didn't tear apart the social fabric of the country. It's been very well developed, controlled. It's helped to eliminate some of the black market, and when recreational cannabis is introduced on October 17th, we'll be seeing the complete movement of a G7 country, as you mentioned, and the opportunity is there for tax revenue. I think you have to look at what is the upside for a government for implementing either a medicinal cannabis program and or a recreational cannabis program. Yeah. Patients' rights are one thing, but then a recreational cannabis opportunity brings in foreign direct investment, local jobs, and then tax revenue, of which every country needs. So when we meet with governments, we speak about the revenue opportunities, the foreign direct investment opportunity, and the long-term opportunity, because it takes 2 to 3 years to build a facility in these countries. It's not just a matter of moving into an abandoned warehouse and popping up a couple of rooms. It's a sustainable enterprise that you're entering into, and from an economic development standpoint, cannabis is already being sold in every country all the way around the world. It's just a below table activity. When you bring it above into the light, are able to tax, able to move ahead. Yeah, it's positive.
Yeah, no, and I do believe that as well. I mean, the economist in me, I always talk about the investor in me and the economist in me whenever I'm speaking about cannabis, because both is a very, very exciting time moving forward of what Canada is representing and what we're doing as a whole. We're just getting started, and you know, one of the first reasons I started looking into you guys about 1.5 years ago or so, when I started looking into an investment, I wanted to look into something that was ready for that a few years from now, and being able to actually work for moving forward with this. You've taken for that as well, and you got a lot still ahead of you. There's a lot of things going on right now. You've got another prospectus filing. You've got all these different avenues that you're looking into. Obviously, these countries keep coming on, so I can imagine it's busy. But as these things continue to develop, I'd love to have you back on the show and speak about them, because I know investors really like hearing what you had to say about your company. But just always just to know, you know, we're still on track. We're still doing our thing. You just wait. You're going to wait to see what we're made of. That's what I get from our conversation.
Yeah, we're moving forward intentionally. We're making rational decisions based on long-term shareholder creation, value creation, and there are great things ahead for our company. So we're all working hard behind the scenes. We have a great team, and we're executing as planned.
Absolutely. Well, this will not be your last time on here. Great. We'll get you back really soon. I appreciate your time very much.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. And we're back.
Good interview.
Now, there's a lot of interesting things there, and a lot of people are looking at things on the shelves and different products not being available, and I have no idea what Wayland's situation or any other company, but it's interesting. If you're going through having to hot glue gun everything, couldn't have put tape on there, Health Canada?
They're definitely going to have to fix the website.
Yeah.
I was looking at it in the producer's room, and it's pretty poo.
Yeah, pretty poo. You can tell he's a parent. You can tell he's a parent. He'll say everything else, but when it comes to that one, he's like,
I don't want to be like, I don't want to be too hard of a critic, but I mean, if you're going to compete with the dispensaries and the black market, like you're going to have to allow some things here. So
there's
you're getting a phone call right now.
There's a lot of work doing done. Oh, I do have a.
And I see who's calling. And I know. Maybe we're in trouble.
Can I call? Can I answer on live television? Hey, we're live right now. How's it going? Yeah, that's okay. I'll call you right back.
But yeah, no, they're definitely going to have to, you know, we just started. It's a big day, you know, it's fun, it's legal now.
Yeah.
I remember like growing up, I was never a big cannabis smoker myself, but a lot of my friends did. And we actually spent the better half of 10 to 15 years smoking cannabis in a fish hut in my buddy's backyard, because his parents didn't want us gallivanting and you know, everyone getting high, right? It's like kind of funny when you think about it. And there was a lot of good times in that fish hut, but that's what we did in Scarborough.
That's too funny. Yeah, we had our magical forest, as well as what the teachers used to call it.
The magical forest?
The magical forest outside John Fraser in Mississauga. They'd always come back and say, Brandon, I noticed you're coming back from the magical forest.
Yeah.
Like, first off, you said that really weirdly.
Yeah.
Second off, now it doesn't matter. It's legal.
Anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, 5 years from now, we're going to look back and feel differently. But yeah, we got to get this, we got to work this thing out. We got to get it right. We got to be able to compete with I shouldn't say we, you know, if you want the legal market to compete with the black market, you got to step up your branding and your marketing, you know what I mean?
Oh, God, yeah.
The prices are going to come down, I'm sure, but.
Well, I can imagine what we're probably going to be talking about next week. It's a recap of what happened this week. Quickly before we go, how many provinces or dispensaries or just in general companies do you think will be sold out by next week?
Be sold out?
Sold out, like just temporarily sold out.
6.
6 provinces. Bold. Yourself?
I don't know.
I'm going 3 provinces.
3, okay.
And of all the top tier cannabis companies we're talking about, I'm going to say, I'll go with 4. 3 provinces, 4 cannabis companies will be dry by next week. You heard it here first. I'm probably going to be wrong. But I appreciate everyone here tonight.
This. If you're wrong, we're going to edit it.
We're going to edit it back afterwards. Well, in 20 minutes, we got James coming on. These are an action-packed show coming up. We need to give a little bit of break for everybody to turn around. We'll be back at 3 o'clock. We'll see you then.
Later.
Yeah.